Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Daniel.
And this is Sam.
And we are
the Kwok Brothers.
And as if the housing market couldn't get crazier enough, it's starting to look like the Game of Thrones series because, well, the way that mortgages are not being underwritten is being completely flipped under its head.
In other words, there's a huge change to the mortgage qualifying process and the criteria to qualify for a mortgage, especially if you have student loans. And it seems like almost everyone, especially in our generation, the millennial generation, ages from 25 to 35, has some sort of a student loan debt ranging from anywhere between 10 to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if you ever want to buy a home, and maybe you're looking to buy a home right now, how banks typically see your finances is they want to take a look at your income and all the debt that you owe, your expenses, and so on.
Right, the DTI ratio, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so it's called a debt to income ratio. So what would essentially happen is the banks will go ahead and pull your credit, take a look at your credit report, look at all the outstanding debt that you have, and combine all the payments that you make on your debt, and basically divide that by your income, and that's what you get, a DTI. Now, this is a massive critical change as far as how banks are going to consider student loan payments when it comes to the debt to income ratio. Now, previously, it was very hard if you had student loans and maybe you had student loans for a while. Maybe your student loans are in deference, meaning it's on a temporary hold. Maybe it's on a forbearance. Maybe it's on an income-driven repayment plan, meaning that maybe you don't make enough income and basically the government says, hey, listen, we're going to go ahead and reduce your obligation, your payments on your student loan payment because you don't make that much, so we're going to try to help you out. Now, previously, if you were in any of those categories, the way that banks will look at your student loan payments is they'll take your entire student loan balance and multiply it by 1%, and that would be considered the payment amount in consideration of calculating the debt to income ratio. So in other words, let's say you have $100,000 of student debt. Basically, they'll take 1% on that $100,000, and the banks would essentially say, you know what, your student loan payment is $1,000. We're just going to assume that for the calculation of debt to income ratio, even though you might not be making any payments, you might be making less than $1,000 payment, and this was definitely screwing up with the debt to income ratio.
So Sam, if I'm hearing you correctly, that's the way that banks used to do if they wanted to underwrite somebody for a mortgage, right? So if somebody wanted to buy a house, even though they're not making that actual payment, the bank is pretty much saying, hey, let's just pretend 1% of your balance is the payment just so that we have a safe parameter on our end. So Sam, what changed?
Yeah, so the biggest change that happened, and of course, we're going to talk about how this impacts housing market. You know, we're a huge fan of talking about the housing market, which, by the way, if you guys are enjoying this content so far, and if you want to learn more about housing market, real estate investing, and so on, do subscribe to our channel because that's what we're passionate about, and we talk about the housing market all the time here. So what did change is that the Biden administration is easing the federal mortgage lending rules. And again, this has to do with any mortgage programs backed by the federal government. So this is FHA, VA, any loans that are backed by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. So this isn't any private institution mortgages. This is specifically for mortgages that are being backed by the federal government. But what changed is that instead of using the 1% rule, now the mortgage lenders are required to actually factor in the real monthly payment amount each month instead of the 1% rule. So let's say your student loan, back to the $100,000 example, you owe $100,000. Previously, the banks were assuming $1,000 a month payment, but instead, let's say you make $250 a month on an income-driven payment plan. Now, the banks have to actually look at the $250 a month payment and consider that as the actual payment, not the $1,000.
Yeah. So Sam, are you saying that a majority of millennial Americans, which let's be real, right? We were part of that Obama administration crowd where Obama is encouraging everybody to go to college, everybody to get student loans. And it sounded great at the time, but obviously we have millions and potentially even tens of millions of Americans.
Billions,
Right. Whether they're in their 20s, 30s, and even 40s and 50s and 60s that are still paying off this debt.
You meant the amount of people, not the amount of money.
People, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
So are you saying that most likely for a majority of Americans, the payment is actually lower in reality than that 1% rule?
Yeah, that is especially true for any individuals with student loans that are not making any payments right now due to special plans like income-driven repayment plan. Maybe it's on forbearance or deferment. So basically, these especially apply to individuals that may not be making a lot of money, and they're going to be extra sensitive to the debt to income ratio.
Got it. So pretty much what you're saying is pretty much what I'm hearing, at least my commentary is that you're now going to have more individuals entering the housing market.
Absolutely.
With more abilities to get qualified for a mortgage.
Yeah, so previously, again, if you were, let's say, making not enough money to qualify for a mortgage, mainly because of the debt to income ratio, right? Your student loans and forbearance, or
the approval rate,
right? The repayment plan. But now your DTI income ratio has gone down. Your debt to income ratio has gone down, which in the eyes of the banks, it looks like you owe less money every month. Now you might actually qualify for an FHA, first-time home buying program with a lower FICO score, which, by the way, that just happened. Many of the banks are now accepting even lower FICO score. In fact, we know of one bank that's now taking as low as 550 for the FICO score to get qualified for a mortgage.
Jeez.
So add this fact into it, for the fact that more individuals can qualify for a mortgage now with the lower FICO score, and now that individuals with student loans can qualify for a mortgage for the first time, that's going to add an immense amount of even more demand to the housing market. So let's go and shift, because I think that was a great.
Well, let's talk about why President Biden did this. And for me, I see two scenarios. I can see one either going really, really bad, or potentially actually being good in this case scenario, right? So let's explore those two options. But first off, it's pretty clear why Joe Biden is doing this, right? It's because, for one, he wants to give the opportunities for the younger millennials, or the millennials in general, who feel like they haven't gotten a fair shot at buying their first home. He wants to be able to arm them with their ability to get that house, to get that first-time house. And I understand, I get it. A lot of millennials, especially our age, who are looking to buy their first home, let's call it what it is. We've been priced out. We've been priced out of the housing market compared to other individuals who have cash, who are paying $20,000, $30,000 above the asking price. So here's where I think it can go really, really bad, right? In my opinion. So number one, right, we already have a huge influx of millennials sitting on the sidelines, waiting for the housing prices to get lower. We've been waiting for that for a lot of individuals for years, right? We saw what happened in 2008. We want that to happen again so we can buy the lower house. That prevents that almost from happening. So you're going to have these individuals sitting on the sidelines even longer in an economy where rents are going higher and higher and higher. I read something along the lines of that our rental increase is the highest rate of increase and acceleration that we've seen ever in this country. As in, rents are going higher than the faster than we've ever seen ever in this country. And another thought too is that, well, the number one issue as to why individuals, millennials strung up with student loans can't actually afford a home, it's not a lot of times because of the DTI. The number one reason by far is actually the down payment. It's actually the lack of down payment. And even on an FHA with 3%, 3.5%, a lot of millennials still don't have that money to go ahead and put that down to be able to get their first home.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically what this adds is even more demand, more individuals entering the housing market, which, this fact alone, and I was just, when we were doing research mode earlier, I was looking at this and saying, there's no end in sight for the crash. Yeah, sure. The last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we've been seeing less activity in terms of home sales, and but this just kind of put a even more stamp in the future, as far as I don't see the housing market slowing down if the demand is the way it is.
Well, Sam, and what's worse is that we're doing that at the same time that eviction moratoriums, people are still protesting for that to continue. Well, that's preventing a lot of displacements from happening. Usually displacements are one of the main ways that houses re-enter into the market. As in, you've got the landlord who rented out that house for about 2-3 years. He hears that the housing market's super high right now. His tenant's giving him a lot of problems. So what he'll do is he'll evict the tenant and then put the house back on the market. And whether or not, the people will say the eviction is justified, whatever, right? Stop evictions. Look, we're renters. We're also landlords. There are definitely some evictions that deserve to happen, right? Let me tell you right now, there are definitely people that deserve to be evicted, right? But the problem is, however you think about that, in the moral situation, that's preventing that house from re-entering back into the market. And that right there, that scenario I just told you guys represents hundreds and hundreds of thousands of homes that's not entering into the inventory of the housing market.
Keep in mind, the mortgage forbearance program is still play. Pretty much to the end of the year, we're probably not going to see any foreclosures related to the mortgage forbearance program, mainly because the CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, has asked much of the mortgage lenders to delay any kind of foreclosure actions till 2022. So coupled with that fact, we're gonna definitely see some inventories, but now this is gonna add even more demand to the existing demand that we're seeing. And just like what we talked about last week's video, there's still 5.5 million units of shortage, meaning builders and construction companies have to build 5.5 million new homes and apartment units just to be able to catch up to to meet the demand of the amount of people wanting to buy a home or needing housing.
But like you said, Sam, we have to see what that number looks like after displacements, after forbearance, right? After all the, because again, people are asking, where did all these people come from in terms of wanting to buy a house? So here's the actual scenario where I can actually see it working, right? Where I could see it working is potentially the Biden administration saying, you know what, we foresee that the prices are going to start to come down a little bit, right? Things are going to cool off. So when that time does cool off, we want to be able to arm the millennial first-time homebuyers to be able to buy their first home. Which, by the way, here's the question that nobody's asking: is that even the right financial move for millennials? Right? Is that even it? Because a lot of people assume, well, buy a home, that's the best financial move. I don't know if that's true. I'm a real estate expert, right? You're a real estate expert. I don't know if that's the best move. So I do see that being a potentially a good thing.
Yeah, no, even with the these individuals, generally people who have their student loans in forbearance or deference or in an income-driven plan, is that they're not making as much money. The part of me that worries me is that if in their finances they're introducing an extra payment of $1,000, $2,000 into their debt to income ratio, man, that might just push them close to that fringe of being distressed. If another COVID-19 will hit, boom, there's another new wave of individuals that are probably going to get into mortgage forbearance, or let's say another recession hits. Well, these are going to be the very first individuals that will probably end up being foreclosed on, maybe because their income's so sensitive. Their DTI is going to be super sensitive. So one has to ask: is this a possible repeat of what happened in 2008? I don't necessarily think so, because back in the day, credit was so loose. But this is a step towards, it's good and bad, right? It's good for the millennials who desperately needs a vehicle to buy a home, and they're so close, and maybe they do have a good job and they want to buy a home. And this might be what's
and at the end of the day, I think it also points to the fact that how much interest is crippling the average American when it comes to student loan debt. The interest is really the worst part, right? Because they don't know how to tackle that principle. And another thing, right? And maybe this is a topic for another video, but I think it's also a testament, right? And let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. But I think it's also a testament that college is not as good of an investment as people think anymore. Ideally, you have all these people who took out thousands and thousands of student debt, and they're not able to. Think about it. That's like the same as taking a huge debt, a huge loan to start a business, and that business is not making any money. Is that a good business plan? Is that a good investment? No, I would say no, right? So let me know your thoughts in the comment section, guys. What do you think about all this?
Yeah, absolutely. So with this being said, this is a big, you guys would think this is minor, but I see this as a major change, big change. There's a lot of people waiting in the sidelines, mainly because of the 1% rule. But now that it's out the window, we're going to see a lot of buyers.
One domino can set the economy on fire.
1% change definitely makes a huge change in the economy. So let me know what you guys think about this. I think this has a good and bad. I see both. But financially speaking, or housing market wise, expect the demand to be steady. I don't think the demand is going to ever go down with this type of government intervention.
Yeah, well, with that said, guys, let us know what you think in the comment section below. Do you guys think that with this whole change in student loans is going to affect the mortgage industry that much? How is it going to affect the housing market? Do you think purchasing power is going to go down? We'll have to see. Let us know your thoughts. And of course, don't forget to like this video. Click that blue button.
Turn that blue.
Turn that blue, yes. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll see you guys in the next one.
All right, see ya.